Station number 5, we've got 4 terms here. So that's going to be factored by grouping. It's kind of already set up for that because there's 4 terms. I group the first 2 and do common factor. I group the second 2 and do common factor. So in the first ones, 4x is what's common. So I'll have an x plus 2 left over. And the next one, negative 3, I factor out a negative because that starts with a negative. If I divide by negative 3, I get a positive x and a positive 2. Now I add a factor 1 layer further. I notice that x minus 2 is common. So I'm going to divide out the x minus 2. And what I'm left with is 4x minus 3. Number 2, we're looking for a common factor. It looks like there's a 9p that I can divide out of each one, right? So I got to write down the common factor, and then I got to actually go divide it out. I get a p squared here. Here I get a minus 3p, and then here I get a plus 2. So I've got 9p, and then this is a trinomial where a is 1, right? So I know the structure is going to be p and p. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to 2, but add to the middle negative 3. So it's going to be 1 and 2, or negative 1 and negative 2. Negative 1 and negative 2 are what add to negative 3. So it's going to be p minus 1 and p minus 2. Remember, when a is 1 and you find those two numbers, that's just your answer. When a is not 1, that's when you got to split the middle term. All right, solve. So I'm not going to isolate the variable because I've got an x squared and an x. So I'm going to apply the zero product property. Well, it's already equal to 0, but the left side is not a product. I need to factor it. So I've got 2 terms. It looks like I can do a common factor of 2x. The first guy, I have an x left, and there I get minus 4. So now I can apply the zero product property. Everyone knows the zero product property. It sounds fancy when I say it, but look, it means that if you multiply a bunch of things together, if any one of them is 0, everything is 0. So we're going to force that to be 0. If we can force 2x to be 0, then of course the whole thing equals 0. So how do we do that? We say, let's make 2x be 0 and solve. What x will make that happen? 0. If I plug in a 0 for x here, 2 times 0 is 0. That makes this whole thing 0. So then 0 times whatever I get here, I don't even care, is going to equal 0. All right, that's all the zero product property is saying. All right, so let's check that out. X equals 0. The other one is this factor. So the zero product property says, hey, if that's 0, if I could force this to be 0, 0 times whatever will be 0, right? So now I want to force x minus 4 to be 0. So that's what the zero product property says. Just say x minus 4 equals 0 and solve for x. And that would be the x value that would make this whole piece right here be 0, which we know is 4. Because if I plug in a 4, I get 4 minus 4. It makes that whole factor 0. So those are our 2 solutions by the zero product property. I'm done with this station.